Hello and welcome to the Bloody Bits Horror Show. I am your host, Eddie, the Axe Jefferson, and joining me as always is everybody's favorite coffin companion. It's Candace.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to everybody. Oh my God, it's the spooky time of the year. I mean, it's always spooky for our show because all we do is talk about horror, so it's really no different, except we're a little busier.
I always say that this is my favorite time of the year because this is when everybody else acts like I do all year round.
Excellent. Excellent point. So we have a very, very special treat for our listeners here. Joining us today is writer and producer of Tales from the Crypt, The Outer Limits, and as well now he is the host of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, The Making of Bordello of Blood, ladies and gentlemen. Alan Katz, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for joining us. That's first of all, I'm going to get
out. Thank you for having me. The whole thing is going to die right here. No, thank you for having me. No, thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to be anywhere.
Yeah. You know what? It's every day you wake up is a great day. I'll tell you that.
It is great just to be.
Exactly. So, of course, you know, the big one for us is going to be Tales from the Crypt. I'm a huge fan of the series.
Yes, same.
Glad, always happy to hear that. It was, I can tell you, it was the best gig I ever had. It was the best. It was the best job anyone could ever have. It was incredible fun. It was a once in a lifetime kind of a thing because its circumstances were so unique. At the time that they started making Tales from the Crypt, TV was one world and feature films were a completely different world. Mm-hmm. And they really, you'd get the occasional Robin Williams or a Tom Hanks who would cross over from TV into features. But, you know, hey, if you were in the feature world, and you ended up doing TV, that was not good.
That's very true.
Yeah, that meant you were in decline. And so the worlds were incredibly separate. Now, HBO, at the time that they ordered Tales, had done series before. They'd done Brian Benben's show. The title escapes me. John Kassir was in a show called First and 10 for a bunch of seasons.
Oh, okay.
But these were TV shows on HBO. They weren't Tales from the Crypt. The whole thing about Tales from the Crypt was that you had 4 huge feature film guys doing a show for HBO. John Kassir tells a really cool story in season 2, episode 1 of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
About when he attended the first screening of the first 3 episodes before HBO even put them on the air. And it was the cast and crew screening of Dick Donner's Dig This Cat, He's Real Gone, Walter Hill's The Man Who Was Death, and Bob Z's the Christmas one. And all through the
house, yes.
And the cast and crew were just blown away, and it included executives. And as it's finishing, 2 of the crew guys are sitting there, and one of them says, "Wow, that's amazing TV." The other says, "It's not TV, it's HBO." And an HBO executive was sitting in the row ahead, and he turned and he went, "Wow."
Yeah.
And the reason that HBO's whole mantra of what HBO was came from the screening of Tales from the Crypt.
That's incredible. I had no idea.
That was their mandate. It's not TV, it's HBO. And so Tales from the Crypt could not be a TV show. We couldn't be First and 10. We couldn't be, the Brian Benben show. We had to be larger than a TV show. That was the mandate. And so, unfortunately, the mandate came with a budget. And what happened during the second season is that they went wildly over budget, $1 million. And the executive producers had not put together, there was no deficit partner. It wasn't put together like a TV show because they didn't think it was a TV show.
Right.
And so it didn't function like a TV show. And that's why they went wildly over budget. true story. The night before the wrap party after season 2, when the executive producers were handed a financial statement that showed they were $1 million in the hole, guys, literally get out your checkbooks.
Wow.
They canceled the wrap party.
Yeah. Well, they need to make some money somewhere.
Return the champagne.
Yeah. Hey, send it back, and they fired the producers, and that's ultimately why they hired Gil, because they hired Gil, and then I came along because I was Gil's writing partner.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
They hired Gil because Gil is an exceptional producer. He's an accountant by training, and he understands. If you have $1, that's as much as you can spend. You can't spend $1. And hey, if you can do what you got to do for 99 cents, you can save a penny. That's even better.
Yep.
And it's really quite simple. And then what Gil and I as a partnership, our approach to problem solving was, we can't throw money at it, so we're going to have to throw our creativity at it without impugning the integrity of whatever the show, the movie is. So yeah, you can slash the budget, but if you slash the story too, what have you got?
Yeah,
nothing. Yeah.
So, God, that was a long-winded answer to some simple question.
So before we get too deep into the subject of Tales from the Crypt, though, I want to go back and talk briefly about writing. Okay,
sure.
So what was it that got you, maybe that was that spark for you to give you that passion for writing?
It is the only thing I'm really the least bit good at.
Okay, that's fair.
You went where the talent took you.
Otherwise, I would be a complete and total burden on society. And that's not to say that I'm not as we speak. When I went to Vassar, I was a drama major.
Okay.
And I thought for 2 seconds I might be an actor. I directed at Vassar. Boy, it's funny. Among the people that I bumped into when I was a drama major at Vassar, I acted in my senior year. I acted in a production, a Brechtian production of Cabaret, and my co-star was an actress named Lisa Zane.
Oh, God. Billy Zane's sister.
Oh, yeah, I know Lisa Zane.
Billy Zane's sister, yeah.
Any redhead is going to know who Lisa Zane is.
Of course.
So it's I met Billy Zane our production weekend, and Lisa's family came in from Chicago. And at that time, I don't know how they distinguish themselves now, but I know for a little while on paper, Billy was Lisa's younger sister, and then he became her older brother.
Wow.
He was the younger brother, then he became the older brother. I think something like that happened at some point, but
yeah,
I'm sure it was just confusion. It was confusion.
Okay, so studied drama at Vassar.
I met Billy that weekend, and he was an amazing looking kid.
No kidding.
Even with hair, he was really just an amazing looking kid, and I have a vague memory of him seducing one of my roommate's sisters, one of my roommate's girlfriends.
Oh, even worse.
One of my roommate's girlfriends. There was talk that something like that happened that weekend.
Well, then
I do remember laughing about it a lot.
Then you say something like it was Billy Zane, and then he's like, "Well, I submit." Then I mean, what else was going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
And then when that kid turns out to be Billy Zane, you go, "Well, okay, who's going to argue with you?"
Yeah. Unless your roommate was Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't think he was going to win. So that's just not how that breaks down.
Indeed. So writing is just the only thing that I know how to do. I thought I'd be an actor. I went to one audition after I left Vassar, and I thought, what kind of a schmuck would earn their living like this? This is humiliating. And I thought, all right, I'll go do the only other humiliating thing I know how to do, which is write.
Oh, man. So, okay, then what would you say was your entry into Hollywood? Because, that's a notoriously difficult place to get in.
Well, I was really, really lucky. I had a friend from high school named Carol Yumkis who became an agent at William Morris.
Oh, okay.
And in 1985, I was living in New York. I was writing and producing training films and little industrial movies. And Carol said, you should try writing a screenplay. And so I wrote one. And I sent it to her. And this was in 1985. And she said, this is pretty good. You should come out and meet and greet people. Now, I was living in New York. I'd gone to school in New York. To me, New York was the center of the universe. The stupidest place on the whole planet was Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's the land of the avocado head. But all right, I said, yeah, okay, I'll come out for a week. And total New Yorker, I went out figuring, all right, I'll go for a week of this nonsense and I'll be done with it. I'm a New York guy. Everyone was so nice. Well, first of all, the weather was great. The East Coast in New York in June, it's 90 degrees. It's humid. It's 100 degrees humidity. You're walking around the city. It smells like a toilet.
Yeah.
And here in California, it was 1985. It was a lot less crowded. It was quite a different place. First of all, June in Los Angeles, there wasn't June gloom. It was beautiful. The sun was shining. It's the desert, so it was, there's no humidity, and everyone was so nice. There was a lot of smoke being blown up my ass. Carol had sent that script around, and people liked it a lot, and all the meetings were sensational. There were a couple of meetings, though. I'll throw this in. I was not the first Alan Katz to hit town, and this is why I have to go by A.L. Katz, not Alan Katz. There was another Alan Katz who was here before me, Allan Katz, and he wrote for MASH, Carol Burnett, and
heavy hitter.
He had, at the time that I got here in 1985, he had written a screenplay that was going around. It was called The Hunchback of UCLA.
Okay,
and it was The Hunchback of Notre Dame at UCLA.
Gotcha.
Excuse me. And it just, people really, really liked the script. It eventually got made as a thing called Big Man on Campus.
Oh.
But at that point, it was going around town. And a couple of the executives, I'd go into the meeting, I'd sit down, and they'd say, we really love The Hunchback of UCLA.
Oh, no.
And the first couple of times before I got hip, I'd go, that's not me. And suddenly they'd look down, then they'd look at me like, what the hell are you doing here? And I'd say, I wrote a script called Down to Earth. And they'd go, oh.
Check, please.
And then they tried to remember if they'd even read it. And, those meetings tended to end rather quickly thereafter.
Yeah.
After a while, I got smart, and they'd say, and we really, really love The Hunchback of UCLA. And I'd go, why, thank you.
See? Clever.
I said, well, if you really like that, what I'm about to pitch you today, you're really going to love.
Oh, yeah. That ain't nothing. Check out the new thing I got.
Yeah. So, the trick is always turning lemons into not just lemonade, but lemon daiquiris, if you can.
There you go.
So one more funny twist to the story. In 1985, when I got here, one of the really instructive things that I did, I took a couple of classes with the Groundlings. And I learned improv.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of got the vibe from you.
Yeah, and so improv is terrific. The whole dynamic of yes and. You add information. You don't say no as part of the creative process. And it's amazing how it keeps it going. The first Groundlings teacher I had was named Phyllis Katz. Oh. She was Alan Katz's sister.
Small world, man. Kidding. Let me tell you.
Isn't that it's funny? So, all right. So the reason I call myself A.L. Katz is that I really don't want to be confused with Alan.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell one more stupid additional tweak to this.
Oh, please.
It's kind of a coda. When I first got here, I had a bunch of friends who were stand-ups, and I played in a regular softball game on Sunday afternoons, mostly stand-ups. Jerry Seinfeld played with it.
Wow.
What's his name? Tom Arnold. A couple of really well-known comedians, and a couple of years go by. Now I'm writing and producing Tales from the Crypt first season is incredibly successful, and now we're in our second season. And I'm in my office where we haven't begun the second season, but we're announced, we're spending money, and my assistant comes in and says, Tom Arnold's on the phone for you. And I think, oh, great, cool. Hey, wow, isn't that fun? Oh, this is one of the benefits of succeeding in this business. Your old friends call you for just to shoot the shit.
Yeah, just because no reason.
Yeah. And so, hey, Tom, how are you? Hey, Alan, how's it been? Blah, 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 blah. And he's talking. And the next thing you know, he's talking about the Roseanne show. Oh, okay, that's interesting. And then suddenly he starts to talk about me coming in and taking over the show and running it. Well, because you're a funny guy, and you did MASH, you did Carl Burnett. Oh, Jesus.
And you said, yeah, well, you should check out this new thing I have.
Yeah. Oh, finally I've been that quick. Wow. And so I said, Tom, I think you've got the wrong Alan Katz.
Oh.
And I said, I'm the Alan Katz you used to play softball with. It was just the longest, most awkward pause on the other end. That, oh, how are you, man?
How's that right arm doing?
Yeah. Towards the end, I said, so, is this offer still good?
Yeah. Is Roseanne still interested?
It wasn't. That was the end of the conversation. So anyway, so that's why I'm A.L. Katz.
Gotcha.
But Alan to my friends.
So would you say you have more of a passion for comedy than horror?
I came into this a comedy guy.
Okay.
To me, Tales from the Crypt was always black comedy.
It is.
Absolutely.
There's a ton of comedy in it.
Oh, that to me, it's subversive. That's the whole appeal. Yes, it's horrifying. The morality tales, each and every Tales from the Crypt is a morality tale.
Right.
It's just the most. It's an ironic tale. It's a morality tale with the most ironic, disgusting, gross ending imaginable.
Yeah, it's got teeth. It's comedy and horror. To me, both of those are very at their best when they're transgressive, right? So it totally makes sense when you kind of dovetail the two together. It totally tracks. And what's interesting to me is in recent history, we've got like Jordan Peele and Zach Krager, who are comedy guys who just blowing through that and really making huge steps in horror. So there's
no better setup than a joke to suddenly then kill somebody.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, literally. I mean, if suddenly the setup, the punchline is death. Wow, wow, man.
Where do you go from there? I mean, that's absolutely.
The genius of the Red Wedding was that it had that kind of feel. It was the unexpected payoff to a joke.
Yeah.
A moment of pleasure becomes a moment of extreme pain.
I mean, and especially like look at Alien with the chest burster scene and the lunch.
Yes,
they're just having a nice jovial, happy time. Everybody's having lunch. Then all of a sudden, just trauma, immediate.
But in and of itself, it's also perversely funny.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I mean, if there's not something really just blow your mind funny about it in some way. It's a little thing bursting out of a guy's chest, looking around, and then suddenly, gotta run.
Skitters off, yeah.
That's hilarious. It's just hilarious.
It is, totally. So, I got to move on here to Freddy's Nightmares. Now, sorry. A friend of our show, Bobby, I need to ask you some questions for him. He is maybe the world's biggest Freddy Krueger fan. And he runs a podcast as well where they regularly do bonus episodes covering episodes of Freddy's Nightmares. So
he's also got them on Blu-ray. He's got the Waxworks records, I think. Yeah, he's huge fan.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So he says in one of your tweets, you mentioned that writing the scripts for Freddy's Nightmares was often like writing a puzzle.
Yeah.
So could you further elaborate a little bit on what that means exactly?
It all had to do with the money and the deals that were paying for the thing. And All right. When the first season of Freddy's, the writing began in the middle of the writer's strike of that year.
Oh, okay.
And so the first 6 episodes were written by non-Guild writers. And at that point, I was not Guild, and nor was Guild. And so that's why we were able to write on the show, because we were not yet Writers Guild. And then after 6 episodes, the strike was resolved. And all the writers who, aside from Gil, who started, aside from Gil and I, all the other writers were basically shit canned. Thanks, guys. Go away. And then they hired a whole staff, and that was that. It was a little gross, frankly, but hey, that's the biz, ain't it?
Yeah, not show friendship.
The original intention, what they wanted, what the executive producers, the money, aspired to from this show, was something that you would get an hour that you could syndicate that way. Or what if you could syndicate it also as 2 half hours? So that each half hour stood alone as a story unto itself. Now, if you're going to syndicate, it can't be sequential storytelling. People have to be able to see it completely out of order.
Right, yeah.
So each half hour in an hour of season 1 of Freddy's had to be able to be a standalone half hour, all by its own.
That explains it. How like how each front segment's a completely different episode than the back part.
Yeah. That was because of the nature of what the money wanted us to do.
But then it also has to relate to the prior half, so that
it has to be a cohesive hour.
So you've got to basically make 2 3-act stories that also fold together. That's insane.
Yes. All right. Second season, it got more complicated. Because then they thought, hey, what if we could sell these as 2-hour TV movies or theatricals in Europe?
Oh, no.
So then you had to have 4 half-hour blocks and had to work as a 2-hour story. And 4 independent half-hour stories plus 2-hour stories that all made sense.
Incredible. Incredible. Whoever's decision that is some galaxy brain, man.
We could have been working on, we could have solved the energy crisis.
Yeah.
We could have, all the brain power.
I'm
surprised we didn't invent Bitcoin. So much mental energy. It's and so much waste, just like Bitcoin.
Sheesh. And then like having writers having to collaborate, so then just having their ideas gel together, that's insane. Yeah. So now, as far as it being like Nightmare on Elm Street related, what did they give you any rules or parameters regarding like the canon or the universe of Nightmare on Elm Street? Like any subjects you were not allowed to touch on, or references you were not allowed to make?
I never heard any such thing, but I was never staff. I just wrote episodes with Gil.
Okay.
So I was never privy to anything that was said in the writer's room.
Gotcha.
And there were guys like, I think Jonathan Glassner was in the writer's room. David Braff, I think, was in the writer's room. A couple, I think David Braff. Okay. There were, as we were doing the show, the film series was evolving in its own way.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that we took to heart was how Freddy suddenly became funny.
Right.
And we kind of glommed onto that because we liked a slightly for the TV show. Again, it's the comedy thing.
Well, right, yeah. Because
Freddy, funny Freddy, who suddenly becomes scary Freddy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because otherwise, what do you have, right? Like if you don't have him connecting the episodes, otherwise it's all non-serialized storytelling. So really, what's the IP? What is it driven on? Yeah, that makes sense. So between that and Tales from the Crypt, you wrote Children of the Corn too.
Yeah, that came about for a very funny reason.
Okay.
Where Children of the Corn came about, it was an opportunistic deal.
Okay.
Scott Stone wanted to get into the feature business. Scott Stone, the TV producer. And he had an amazing house up above Sunset Strip. Still might, for all I know. An amazing house. And his downhill neighbor was a guy named, I'm going up on his name, Larry something or other. And he wanted to put up something that was going to obstruct part of Scott's view.
Oh, no.
And Scott was aware of the fact that he controlled the Children of the Corn series.
Okay.
And so Scott made a deal. You can put up a partial obstruction of my view, but you got to put up the money for this movie.
Well, hey, when life hands you lemons.
And I remember going to Scott Stone's house one afternoon and just standing there looking at the view that was going to be partially obstructed. That was our movie. It was really funny. We I remember going and having a meeting there at Scott's house just so we could stare at the view that was going to get. Yeah, this point here is all we're losing, and yeah, he'll make the deal. He'll make the deal.
Wow.
And and then we set out to write the script. And I think it was rather ahead of the curve of us to take an environmental tack.
True. Yeah, very true. That would have been back what?
We were forward thinking. It's all about the ergot, which comes about because of the mishandled
the mold
grain.
On the grain, yeah. That interesting. Yeah, that was back in '92. So yeah, that was quite a bit ahead of the curve, man. Okay, so let's go on to Tales from the Crypt then. Now, so you wrote and produced on there. You started at the third season, right?
Third season, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you have any history of reading the Tales from the Crypt or other EC comics? Okay, interesting.
Yes. I was a huge I owned the EC comics. I read them, and I was a huge fan of Mad Magazine.
Same.
Okay, yeah.
Huge. I loved Bill Gaines's world.
Yes.
One of the greatest pleasures, honors of my life was getting to meet Bill Gaines.
Wow.
On the set of Lethal Weapon 2 in Joel's trailer while we had lunch.
Okay.
And, Joel, being Joel, he was making a joke in that way of his. He said to Bill, Gil and I came in and we sat down and Joel Silver turns to Bill Gaines and says, all right, Bill, these are the two guys who are working on the show. You can tell them if they're completely fucking us up, you can tell them right to their faces that they're fired. Tell them they can go fuck off. And Bill Gaines said, no, I love what they're doing. They completely get this. I love what they're doing.
That's awesome. To get the blessing from the man himself.
That is God touching you. It really was. It was, for me, what I loved, what the franchise of Tales from the Crypt is what I would describe as wicked fun.
Definitely. Yes.
Okay.
Wicked fun. Stuff you laughing at shit you shouldn't be laughing at.
Oh yeah.
But there you are. And really there's everything about it is looking at authority and just giving it the finger. Fuck off authority. Really. No respect for authority whatsoever, which is exactly what it deserves. And I loved that about it. Because it's exactly what I felt. One of the other essential influences to my creative evolution, I loved Groucho Marx.
Oh, okay.
Love Groucho. When I was 10 years old, I saw Horse Feathers.
Oh.
And at the beginning of Horse Feathers, he's the new president of Huxley College, and he sings a song, whatever it is, I'm against it.
Yeah. The big monologue scene. That
he has at
the beginning. Okay.
Fantastic. Oh my God. It's such
that
wordplay. And then he sings that song, whatever it is, I'm against it. And I thought, this man is talking to if I have a soul, he's talking to it.
That's great.
And and it's that's the same thing that Bill Gaines was touching.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if you look in the history of EC Comics, like the censorship that they had to go through, it was totally that makes sense.
I tell a story in the first season of the Hell Not to Make a Movie podcast about about a year. Yeah, about a year, and it must have been a year and a half before Gil and I got Tales. I was unemployed as usual, and there used to be a thing called the Cable Ace Awards.
Okay.
And because I had done Freddy's Nightmares, I did a script in the second season, so I was able to join the Writers Guild. So I was now a professional real writer, and so I was invited by the Cable Ace people to be a writing judge.
Okay.
And so on the appointed day, I went to Century City. It was the Century City Plaza Hotel. And in a giant, room up on the 18th floor, about a dozen writers, unemployed because we had time to be Cable Ace judges.
Right.
We were judging that year's Cable Ace Writing Awards.
Okay.
And there was 8 and a half hours of viewing ahead of us. They gave us a list of everything we'd be watching. There was a lot of stuff on the Hallmark Channel and this channel, and it's a lot of stuff that seemed okay. Yeah, I know why that's on the list. And the first three things they were going to show us were the first 3 episodes of Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, wow.
But here's the weird thing. Every one of the dozen writers, we saw that and we went, oh, fuck, there's an hour and a half we'll never get back.
Oh, no.
And we walked, absolute prejudice. Absolute. Every last one of us, we sat there really just kind of just sagging like, oh, boy, what a great way to start the day. The first episode we watched was Donner's Dig This Cat, He's Real Gone. It's genius. It's wonderful. And, Terry Black's script is really good. It's very funny. The thing zings and it pops. And midway through the first one, man, by the time we get to Walter's was the second. And then Bob's. But halfway through the first episode, you could hear every one of the dozen writers in the room. You could hear our minds turning over going, fuck me, man, this is brilliant. Get my ass on this show. We were converted, and we gave it the Cable Ace Award. Nothing could compete with it. It won hands down. We loved it. And we all wanted to be on that show because it was, wow, what fun it must be to write that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then a year and a half later, Gil and I walk into Barry Josephson's office. And it's the last thing we have to pass before, hey guys, let's go make a deal. And it was, wow. I can only tell you, it was transcendent. And yet it's part of what makes this town so odd. And, perseverance and being in the right place at the right time. Well, being in the right place at the right time usually means you were at the right place at the wrong time up until that moment.
Yeah. 100 times.
You came to the right place at the right time. But that's the nature of perseverance. And that was exquisite. And that's why doing Tales was for me personally the luckiest thing imaginable. It was exactly the show I would want to do. And it was, to me, it was the blackest of comedy. But that's also what made it truly horrifying, was that you could go to the darkest places that the human mind could go.
Yeah.
Geez, I mean, look at the What's Cooking episode.
Yeah. I love that episode. But one of the highest rated episodes too. What's Cooking?
I'm biased, but I think it deserves to be. It's incredibly. It's wicked fun.
Yeah. It's insanity.
We just next week's episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, we have a lovely conversation with our friend Todd Masters.
Okay.
And we talk about special effects, and it's always fun hanging out with Todd. It's just glorious fun. But one of the fondest memories I have, and I have so many fond memories of working on Crypt, was working with Todd to get that butt steak just right.
Yeah, your chunk of meatloaf.
Yeah. Which when Victoria Burrow suggested casting Meatloaf in the part, I would have killed it, people, to get him.
Well, yeah, just the name alone is hilarious.
Meatloaf in a show about cannibalism.
Exactly.
That's hilarious.
Its own joke.
Just conceptually. How can you not want to do that? And Todd also tells a really funny story in season 1 of the El Not to Make a Movie podcast about when we cast Meatloaf. The body cast, that takes about a week, and we cast Meatloaf 3 days before he worked.
Okay.
And so we had no time, but we had been hoping for Meatloaf. We just hadn't made the deal. We didn't know if we were going to get Meatloaf. If we didn't get Meatloaf, we were going to hire someone with Meatloaf's body type, or what we thought was Meatloaf's body type.
That's right. Yeah.
And so Todd went and he did a body cast on a guy who weighed 350 pounds because that's what hey, that's all the data we had. That's what we knew he looked like. And Meatloaf comes in the day before he's going to work for his wardrobe fitting. The man's lost 85 pounds. He's fat. he's a shadow of his former self, and we are horrified. We're horrified.
Yeah, because what do you do?
Because of the wardrobe we picked out is for a larger man,
right?
And then he suddenly says, we tell him, look, we got a problem here, and we show him the body cast. And he was really upset because he'd just gone on this huge diet. And man, that body cast, that body hanging in the cold in the freezer that's a blobby guy. And that was not how Meatloaf was feeling at that moment. He was rather unhappy with Todd. But what could we do? And in addition to being unhappy with this, we said, well, look, we can't possibly have you looking like you and then we have this thing that doesn't look like you hanging.
Right.
1 + 1 must equal 2.
Yeah.
So he agreed to wear a fat suit.
Oh man.
My God.
Wow. Oh man, he was a very good sport. Was Mr. Lowe. I was
going to say, talk about being a trooper, man. That's, jeez. After working to lose 80 pounds, just say if the camera adds 10, cable adds 20. How about that? Oh man!
Hey man, show business. It's rough.
I wanted to say real quick. My husband would not forgive me if I did not mention this when we're talking about the comedy and the horror. My husband's not a horror person. Sure. I am, but he likes comedies, and so Tales from the Crypt is kind of a middle ground where we've met. Like something that we can both agree on to watch because it's got something for each of us. And
do we raise the kids in horror? Do we raise the kids in comedy? Wow.
And why not both?
Hey, it's the first church of Tales from the Crypt.
But in season 2, there's an episode called Three's a Crowd. And it's my husband's absolute favorite episode. So I just had to mention it because there's this one part where the lead, he like grabs a woman's leg after she's dead and he's like, okay, let's go try to make that baby now. It just floored my husband. He could not stop laughing.
If I recall, the woman in the episode is played by Ruth D'Souza. I think it's Ruth D'Souza. And it's funny because Ruth D'Souza was in an episode of Freddy's Nightmares that I did.
Small world again.
It's just funny. It's just, the casting geography. Well, I work with that guy, work with this guy, and it's 2.5 degrees of separation.
It helps a lot, that's for sure. So for your writing credits on there, I just kind of perused through there. So Yellow, of course, is the one everybody probably wants to talk to you about. Phenomenal episode, by the way. What's Cooking, of course, and then Death of a Salesman.
That's probably my favorite episode, to be completely honest, is Death of a Salesman.
Oh, good. I love your taste.
It really is. Anytime, everybody's got their favorite, and they always, say, from like the first season or What's Cooking, but Death of a Salesman was always my favorite since I was a small child, way too young to be watching Tales from the Crypt.
It's funny. That was one where, as Gil and I sat down to write it, the whole concept was that one actor would play the family.
Of course. Right.
And so we wrote it with that intention.
That makes so much sense. And then hearing you have this history in drama, of course, who are you going to cast? I mean, with Rocky Horror being massive in theater, perfect casting.
Gil tells a wonderful story about how he nailed down that piece of casting because Gil was going to direct it. And he was told by Tim's management that we were going to be doing it at the time of year that Tim always went down south for Mardi Gras, I think to Rio. Mm-hmm. And his manager said to Gil, look, he's not going to cancel his plans to Rio. Don't waste your time. And Gil said, look, I just want to have a conversation with him. Just talk. I just love his work. Just can we have lunch? And so they agreed to have lunch. And Tim at the top of the lunch said, look, you understand Mardi Gras is inviolable. Yeah, I just want to talk. And starts talking about the script, starts talking about the concept and what we have in mind. And after he's talking for a little bit, Tim tells him, God, you are a son of a bitch. You know. Now I can't go to Rio.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like it's such a challenging role. Like
that is exactly. Tim always said the reason he did it is because it scared the crap out of him.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's with the choices he's made in acting. To select things because they scare him. That's interesting.
Yeah. It was so much fun working with Tim and knowing Tim. It's funny. Working with Tim is one of those experiences on Crypt. When I was at Vassar, Rocky Horror Picture Show was huge, huge. And, we watched it, we danced to it. It is such a fascinating experience to not only meet the people who they were your cultural essentials as you were growing up. They were very formative in your evolution to whatever you became. To find yourself meeting them is one thing, but working with them,
that's
being creatively engaged with them on a common project is the most exquisite experience. It's the thing that I feel luckiest about in the entirety of my life. The people who, when I was, I'm going to jump forward, give you another moment that was just transcendent for this exact reason. The last episode that Bob directed was You Murderer.
Okay.
And it's a single, basically this is the one with John Lithgow and Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, that's the plastic surgeon one,
right? It's the single camera. It's all told from the single point of view. Yes. But the whole design behind that was Bob was going to do the last episode that we were going to shoot that season, and so Gil and I went up to have lunch with Bob outside Santa Barbara at his house. And after we pushed the plates aside from lunch, he says, all right, guys, here's all I know. I want to do a single camera, projective camera point of view from the point of view of a dead guy. Okay, single camera, subjective point of view, dead guy. Okay. Oh, and I want the dead guy to be played by Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
Okay. And from that moment until we pulled it off, getting Isabella Rossellini was for me really exciting. But what made it really exciting was when we were doing her wardrobe, and she had made the decision that she wanted to play her part like her mom, like Ingrid Bergman in Casablanca.
Wow!
And so I remember walking into the wardrobe fitting, which is where I met Isabella for the first time, which already is like, wow. And she's laughing delightedly because we've put together a whole bunch of looks that, she looks like her mom in Casablanca. And when you step into the fitting area and Isabella Rossellini is dressed like Ingrid Bergman and having the laugh of her life, going, and my mother this and my mother that. You got to pinch yourself. My God,
it's incredible.
I have entered some other world that surely this cannot be real.
Yeah.
These are moments that are just, wow. It was why doing that show was unlike anything else one could possibly do. It really was. It wasn't TV. It was HBO, whatever the hell that is. It was larger. It was just nothing else like it. And we all felt incredibly privileged to be part of it. And we all felt, we gave it everything because we were part of something special. When we started to do the features, Demon Knight, and then, of course, Bordello, everything that was special began to break down. And in fact, the whole story, really why I think telling the story of Bordello is important, is because that was how something really special, really the whole dynamic behind making Tales from the Crypt, it broke down completely. From the day that on the day that Universal pulled the plug on Dead Easy, which was a movie we all desperately wanted to make. That was our next step forward. It was a horror movie, but it was a psychological thriller. So we all, the whole creative team, had a movie in our heads. We had, in my mind, I wanted to do Nick Rogue's Don't Look Now.
Okay.
That was the movie. That was the kind of psychological thriller that I wanted to make. It was, it wasn't straight. There was going to be a lot of horror in this movie, but it wasn't. We wanted a lot of psychological stuff. Right. And then when Universal pulled the plug and said, "No, you're not going to do that movie. You're going to do this thing called Bordello of Blood." And by the way, still got 3 weeks to start. Because our start date on Dead Easy was tied to Halloween the following year. We had a release schedule. Yeah. We had a release date. And so the release date didn't change just because Universal pulled the plug. They said, "Nah, you're still going in 3 weeks. By the way, here's your new script. It's called Bordello of Blood."
Okay, so you did Demon Knight first. Then the next one was going to be Dead Easy.
The mandate was 3 different movies, unlike each other.
Okay, and so what? How far were you along in the process with Dead Easy at the time?
We were 3 weeks away from the start of formal prep in New Orleans.
Jeez. So location
we were casting. We read a very young Salma Hayek for one of the key female roles. Man, she would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The script still had a few things that we had to work out, but
wow.
One of the things that's coming up, I'll drop a little. We're going to at some point in the near future, we're going to create a little subscription area for the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. We've got a couple things we've recorded that are just incredible. I think worth a couple dollars. But we're also going to make available for subscribers the script.
Oh, snap.
Ooh, okay.
My ears perked up.
Let me know when that's up.
But we're going to do even more than that. Between now and the end of the year, Gil and I are planning, we're going to do a charitable event for the Motion Picture Hospital here. We're going to do a reading.
Wow.
We're going to do a reading. We're going to, a live reading of Dead Easy.
Sometimes I'm jealous I don't live in LA area.
But it'll be Zoom. People will be able to Zoom
good
into
info.
It.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh no! It'll be available to everyone in the whole world. This will be an event that people can, you buy, you chip in a few dollars for the charity, and you're in the audience.
That's excellent. Okay,
so that will happen before the end of the year. We're putting that together right now.
Nice. Well, I can't wait. Yeah, keep us posted on that one.
I promise you. Oh, and by the way, while I'm here, hey, next Sunday. Gil and I are doing our first How Not to Have a Hollywood Halloween Q&A with Gil Adler and Alan Cass, hosts of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast.
Excellent. That sounds
that will
great.
be noon Pacific time on Sunday. If you go to our YouTube channel, the How Not to Make a Movie podcast YouTube channel, and subscribe, you will be able then to be part of the excitement. You can ask us anything, any question you want next Sunday.
Eddie, we thought we were busy.
No kidding. Man,
no rest for the wicked, apparently.
I tell you. So with Demon Knight, what was your experience in working on the movie? I know that this was an existing screenplay that was kind of out there.
Yes, Cy and Ethan. It was a great script by Cy and Ethan and that guy Bishop, but he really wasn't really part of it. But Cy and Ethan wrote a great script that needed to be scriptified.
Right.
Which to a degree I did. I did a fair amount of work on the script. You know, it's Cy and Ethan's script, but I asked for credit. Gil and I asked for credit in part because there was a sizable chunk of the film that was Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
And so for that alone, I thought, well, we kind of deserve some credit for that. I mean, Cy and Ethan didn't write that. I mean, can we at least get separate credit for that? But in the Writers Guild, in order to get credit, the second writer needs to have impacted the script more than 33%.
Okay.
Characters, story elements, anything, but there needs to be what a reader perceives as about 30% different. Yeah. If the writer on the project has a producing title, then they must have altered at least 66%.
Okay.
And I lost my claim, died somewhere between 33% and 66%.
Gotcha.
And which, if that's the rule, that's the rule. And
right.
And I lost it. And frankly, I'm glad because I now have a relationship with Cy and Ethan, and I don't think I would have if they'd be sharing their money with me.
Gotcha.
So although I do think they should have carved out separate credit for the Crypt Keeper segments because that would have been fair.
But, I gotta ask the question: who came up with the joke? God damn it! Get that pussy off the table. My favorite joke in the entire movie.
I think yes! I might be guilty.
I love that one, and I got to say, I love the scene where Billy Zane comes up to Cece with the arm offering.
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
That was part of the cryptification of it. Trying to give Billy. I also have always chuckled at the my nipples are smoking.
God damn, my nipples are smoking. Sorry, I've memorized that movie.
Yeah. That's heavy rotation here. You got to watch it at least once a year. Oh, yeah.
So in answer to the question, I was involved a lot in it, and Gil was more the active producer on it. We were working on the next season of Crypt, but we shot the movie mostly at the Van Nuys Airport, using a couple of abandoned hangars and a couple of trailers.
Okay.
And so we were headquartered. Tales from the Crypt itself was headquartered there because we never had we never had formal space. We always went from warehouse to warehouse to warehouse. I mean, Gil begged the executive producers, guys, buy a warehouse. It'd be so much cheaper. And then you could, and they just would never take a great suggestion. And so we would move from warehouse to warehouse to warehouse, usually at the last possible second. Just like that.
So frantic. So I guess then we'll move on and just briefly talk about Bordello of Blood because you've got a podcast covering it. So I would urge our listeners to go check that out instead. But I just have to ask a couple of quick ones here.
Oh, sure.
Going into the project, did you have any more trepidation for it than for instance, what you did with Demon Knight or other projects?
Well, we wanted to do a whole different movie. Our hearts are in a movie called Dead Easy.
Right.
And at no point could our hearts ever be in Bordello of Blood.
That's fair. Yeah.
We were handed the script 3 weeks before we started formal prep. At the same time, and I was, the reason Universal did it, and if you go back and you look at their reasoning from a corporate perspective, it makes complete and total sense. About a year before, there was a new company had just formed called DreamWorks.
Right.
And DreamWorks, of course, that was Steven Spielberg. He was no longer, yes, DreamWorks is on the Universal lot, but he was no longer a Universal employee. He was a DreamWorks employee.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Universal was desperately afraid as DreamWorks began to make deals with other talent that the first piece of talent they'd reach out for was Bob, because Steven was Bob's mentor. And they were desperate to keep Bob in their family. Of course they would be. He's a great filmmaker, and he makes them a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, they said, Bob, what can we do? And among the list of things that Bob must have given him was, and you buy the first student script that Gail and I ever wrote when we were at USC, Bordello of Blood. It was just a deal point. And I imagine to put some money into Gail's pocket. Bob Z is wonderfully loyal that way. He's great. And that was the whole point. But from Universal's perspective, well, now they've just spent $500,000 because that was the asking,
right.
Yeah, that was the asking price for a student movie, $500,000. All right, so from Universal's perspective, now are they going to just eat that $500,000 and go, well, it's part of the cost of keeping Bob Zemeckis? Or clever thought, hey, Bob's the executive producer of one of those Tales from the Crypt movies. Yeah, they're doing something else, but we've spent $50,000 on that movie. Take that off the budget. And now they're making this movie. We spent $500,000 on the script. It's got Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale's name on it, which meant a lot more than Alan Katz or Gil Adler's name on a screenplay.
Right.
And so from their perspective, what's dead easy to them? They were making a much better business move with a script that had much bigger names on it. Who cared?
Yeah.
And
didn't work out too well.
That was their perspective. It wasn't our perspective,
right?
But you could certainly appreciate why a corporation would do such a thing.
Yeah, the problem though is then there's no, like you said, there's no passion behind it, and
well, hey,
yeah.
they're not in the passion business.
No, of course not.
They're in the minting money business.
Well, the problem is that everybody phones it in when there's no passion in it, and then
right.
Well, so the first thing that I was told to do was, in addition to everything else, all the other work that had to get done is rewrite the script. Bring it forward. It can't read like a student movie.
Right.
Well, okay. It's called Bordello of Blood. I've got 3 weeks to do it. There's no time to reinvent this wheel. It's about what it's about.
Yeah.
The characters are how they're written. We're not going to invest Rafe Goodman with much humanity. He as written by two 20-year-olds with no life experience to speak of. He's a small town detective. How much work do you suppose there is for a small town detective? Not much.
Not a lot.
It's just from the logic point of view, he can't exist. He's
right.
He's a non sequitur.
Yeah.
And so, all right, as you go to invest, all right, so why did it become this thing that nobody would be? Who is this schmuck?
Right. There could be no
background. I don't know anybody like this. I don't know anyone who would be this. I can't invest this character with anything because he's not real. And there's no way to change the most salient fact of his unrealness.
Yeah.
The essential fact of what he has to be just to work inside the story.
Yeah, so you have to build up from that.
Starts off unworkable.
Right.
Because the characters can only ever be ciphers and signs and just things to move around the board. And so it was an impossible assignment. And we knew that going in. But hey, Bob Z was wonderful and gracious. And he said, hey, guys, do whatever you got to do. Yeah. Really, truly, it was nothing to him.
Well, on the plus side, you didn't have to write any dialogue for him.
Yeah, and that was, on the very first day that Dennis came to set in Vancouver, he was doing his HBO show.
Right.
It wasn't written for Dennis Miller. To this day, Gil and I could not tell you why we hired Dennis
You went to a fugue state and all of a sudden there's a contract signed.
This was something that Joel insisted on casting the 3 leads. He insisted. He would not. We wanted, I think, Danny Baldwin.
Okay, I could see that.
That was who we wanted for Rafe Goodman. And now, look, it was still an underwritten part, but I think Danny Baldwin would have brought some genuine gravity to it. He wouldn't have been this flippant asshole. Right. Now, all right, but hey, that's what we cast. Now, honestly, we never had a conversation with Joel where Joel said, look, I got this great idea. What do you think? He made the deal. He made the deal. And the thing was, Dennis didn't want to do the movie. It wasn't our idea to pay Dennis $1 million. It was Dennis's idea. Because Dennis figured, and he said, okay, I'll do it for $1 million. He figured no one in their right mind would say yes to pay Dennis $1 million more than anyone had ever paid him to be in a movie. It wasn't in our budget. We had $500,000 for that part. A $13 million movie. You know, when Joel said yes to Dennis's $1 million, which shocked Dennis because he never thought anyone would say yes. Excuse me. You know,
I got to say that we
went to Universal. I lost my train for a moment. We went to Universal. We said, okay, we got Dennis. Can you give us some breakage? And they went, we don't want Universal. We don't want Dennis Miller. He's nothing to us. He's nothing to our audience. He's anything to your audience. We're not quite sure why you cast him. No, you can't have any money for Dennis Miller. So we had to take the extra money to have $1 million extra dollars to pay for Dennis Miller out of the budget. Well, the one place where we had all the money were a monster movie. We're a vampire movie. It's in the vampires. It's in all the special effects. We took $500,000 out of special effects makeup to pay Dennis Miller, an actor. To this day, I couldn't tell you why we hired.
In his defense, I liked him. I liked him in that movie.
Hey, you know, Dennis is a very funny man. Just Dennis by himself. This is what he does for a living. He's really smart. He's a great observational comic. I don't care for his politics personally, but that's neither here nor there. He's in and of himself, Dennis Miller, doing what he does for a living. He is a talented man, and doing his HBO show. Yeah, he was very good at that. He can't take that away from Dennis. But Dennis is not an actor, and Dennis, you know, comedians are not happy people. No. Nobody gravitates to comedy because they love life.
No.
Comedy attracts the most miserable sons of bitches because they need the comedy as part of the therapy, so as they don't do themselves in. They'll do the things in that they hate, and so it attracts some fairly miserable people. And Dennis is a miserable person, and he's not happy until everyone around him is as miserable as he is. This is simply my work experience with the man.
Gotcha.
And so I didn't write the script for Dennis Miller. I didn't want Dennis Miller, but now I have Dennis Miller. And on the first day that he works, Dennis Miller comes to the set. We were shooting. It was the third day of production. We started on a Thursday, some stuff in the studio, and then there was the weekend where we finally got Erika Eleniak to commit to it. She didn't commit to work until we were already filming. And then Dennis showed up on Monday. We were at location at the Orange, a strip club in Vancouver. And I met Dennis out in the parking lot, and he got out of the limo. He just come from the airport, and I handed him the latest draft of the scripts that we had just fixed to try to make Erika Eleniak happy. Now, This is not written. It's not written for anybody. It's not written for any actors in particular. Certainly ain't written for Dennis. You know, is this character funny? How do you make a guy who's not with no center funny? No, it's not. He's not a funny character. Is he a well-written character? No. Does he say anything really sparkling and great that I'm gonna kill the guy if he doesn't say? No. There's not a line of dialogue that I think is even remotely memorable. And I hand Dennis the script, and he opens it, looks at the first line, and he says, "I can't say."
Oh no.
And he then informs me that, in fact, he can't say any of the lines of dialogue that have been written for him.
Wow.
It just doesn't sound like him. And I can't disagree with the man.
Yeah, no, that's fair. He has
spoken absolute truth. It does not sound like you. You would sound ridiculous saying this dialogue. I can't argue. And so he says, I'm going to improv all my dialogue.
I was going to ask how much of that was just Dennis Miller. Because it was, okay, that's what I thought.
Every last bit, all of it. all of it. And that was, I couldn't say anything. There was literally, no, Dennis, you must say everything that we've written for you because it's Shakespeare. No, of course not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right off the bat, I lost Dennis Miller in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And Dennis knew that. And so, didn't matter what anyone else said in the script. It didn't make a goddamn bit of difference. And Dennis then would improv. All the other actors were sticking to the script. And because Dennis was just improving, there's information that needed to be in the script that just never got there because Dennis never improv.
Right.
So information just vanished, and sometimes scenes wouldn't really make much sense because Dennis's improvs are kind of funny in the moment, but the scene needs to get to a certain place, and you have one character who's saying relevant information and the other who's just kind of riffing. It was not easy to cut it together.
Yeah. But I can imagine.
It created that problem. Now, then it got compounded because Dennis, doing his HBO show, though we were paying him $1 million more than anyone paid him to be on a feature film, we had to flip our weekends because he rehearsed on Thursday, shot on Friday. So that suddenly had to be our weekends, and our Monday now became everyone else's Saturday. That was not the deal that our Canadian crew made. They, unlike us, they don't live to work, they work to live. And so suddenly they were having to spend their weekends working with an actor, frankly. Our Canadian crew hated Dennis rather quickly. And so to give up their weekends and they knew it was because of this actor who disrespected them and they didn't like one bit, was hard. And so that caused a fair amount of turnover. Then the problem was with the actors, the other actors. Dennis would be really tired. He would send his assistant to me first thing in the morning. She'd say, Dennis is really tired. Can we shoot him out early today so we can go back to the hotel and sleep? And we would do that most days. We would go, okay, all right. We'd indulge him. And so we would shoot Dennis's side of a scene, and then it'd be lunch, and Dennis would go home to the hotel and sleep, and we'd turn around and shoot the other side of the scene with all the other actors. And so all the other actors were working not with Dennis, but with the script supervisor, with all of Dennis, which she had scribbling Dennis's improvs into the margins of her script. And so she's reading them as best she can while the actors are trying to act. And so the actors aren't acting to Dennis, they're acting to the script supervisor, reading her lines and reading Dennis's lines, improvised lines in the dark. So what are they reacting to? It's not the script supervisor's fault. This is Dennis.
Of course.
And so before too long, like immediately, actors don't care to be disrespected like that. They began to resent Dennis, understandably so. Yeah. And as I comment at one point during the first season of the Hell Not to Make a Movie podcast, it's amazing what $1 million won't buy you.
As a Dennis Miller apologist, I do apologize for that.
But again, hey, when we made the decision to hire Dennis Miller, in Dennis's total defense, once you commit to working with this person, you're not going to get somebody else.
Yeah, so there's a similar.
We made that decision, and so whatever Dennis was, that's what we were going to get.
So there's a similar story to Don Rickles being cast in a movie. He refused to read the lines in the script, but at the same point, like if you're casting Don Rickles, you're casting Don Rickles. He's going to do what he does. I get it.
What film was that?
That was Dirty Work. It was the comedy with Norm Macdonald.
I just saw Kelly's Heroes the other day.
Oh, okay.
And that's a terrific war. It's more like an anti-war movie. It's a heist. It's a behind the German lines heist with Clint Eastwood and Telly Savalas and Don Rickles, Donald Sutherland. It's really.
I know of it, but I have not seen it personally.
Check that out.
I know some of our listeners will be screaming at the speakers, being like, "How could you not have seen this movie?"
Yeah.
Well, if you ever get a chance to see it, it's never what you expect. It's so unlike anything else that they were making at that time. It's as much an anti-war, an unwar movie as Butch Cassidy is an unwestern.
Right. Interesting. I might have to check that out. That does sound good. So,
although I can't compare Kelly's Heroes to Butch Cassidy. Butch Cassidy's.
Right. So just to kind of wrap it up here, and again, thank you so much for your time. Just a couple of quick questions, top of your head stuff. Sure. In modern horror, what have you seen, or what's coming out that excites you?
I'm not a big horror guy.
Okay.
In terms of what I watch, the things that I'm very selective. Okay. I think Mick Garris is I love everything that Mick does. I think Mick is superb, and I think that's much more my
more of an Ovier,
simply because I'm I want to see something funny in it. So I shy away from the darkest of the dark.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. I appreciate every last bit of it. And when I do see it, that's the stuff which is made with a bit of, of wit, as opposed to just cruelty for the sake of the cruelty.
Right.
But when you bump into wit, I love every last bit of it.
Wow.
Yeah, to me that's
I could make a filmography for you if you want.
Would you please?
I was just going to say, then I would suggest you check out Barbarian.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic.
I do love the idea that Terrifier 2 makes people
William Cass is back, baby. Do not see this movie in theaters, or if you're pregnant or have a weak heart.
But that is fantastic. I love that. I almost don't care what the movie is anymore. That's genius.
That's incredible marketing.
Genius.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And
so I appreciate that. I do.
And the last one I'll ask you before we get to your plugs. Somebody hands you a blank check, right, to make your passion project, write, direct, produce, whatever. What would you make if you were handed that opportunity?
As a matter of fact, Gil Adler and I are working on it right this second, and it's horror.
Oh,
isn't that weird? It's about. Well, I don't want to give away too much. Think about this would be a Walking Dead replacement, but with the Crypt Keeper's soul. So if you can imagine The Walking Dead crossed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer with a little bit of
I think The Walking Dead could really use some levity. So that does sound good.
Oh, this is imagine, and the whole thing is told from the monster's point of view.
Okay.
Entirely 100% from the perspective of the monster, and the monster is hilarious.
I love stuff like that,
and so viciously violent and cruel. Oh my God! Yeah, they'll throwing up and passing out. That's what we're after.
I'll tell you one more thing you just made me think of. Is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
That was my first thought. If you want a movie that is brilliant and clever and witty and subversive, then definitely Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
I will watch that in the next short amount of time. I will take that recommendation to heart. Thank you so much for that.
So speaking of recommendations, is there any that you would recommend our listeners check out on the internet if they want to hear more from you?
Well, of course, there's the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. Season 2, I just did a 2-part interview with Steve D'Souza. And it's really, the first season, the premise is it was the making of How Not to, the making of Bordello of Blood. It really, it's about when filmmaking craft turns to crap, that's our franchise. And the first season was about when filmmaking craft produces a bordello of blood. In the second season, we're going to talk to all the other filmmakers that Gil and I know, and we know an awful lot of filmmakers. And hey, all right, so we've told our sad story, you tell yours. We've showed you yours, we've showed you ours, you show us yours.
Nice.
And so, among the people that we've brought in to tell us remarkable stories is Steve D'Souza. Steve, the first thing he directed a couple small things. He directed an episode of Tales from the Crypt, Carrion Death,
love that episode
with Colin McLaughlin.
Love that. Yep.
And Steve is a remarkable storyteller. He's an epic storyteller. I mean, he's one of the few screenwriters whose collective output has earned, I think, is more than $5 billion.
Jesus.
Some astronomical amount of money. People look at Die Hard as their go-to Christmas movie.
Yep.
And Steve does he's got a chart. It's hilarious, but he makes a great point that, okay, actually, Die Hard really does qualify as a Christmas movie. In fact, Die Hard qualifies as a Christmas movie much more than, say, White Christmas does. And he's got some data to prove it. Hey, in fact, the body count in White Christmas is way higher than the body count in Die Hard.
Speaking of unconventional Christmas movies, he should look at Lethal Weapon. Like most people talk about Die Hard. They don't think about Lethal Weapon, but give that another watch and you'll see. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Shane. Yes. I think is Shane right that. Yeah. Steven is a much more subtle writer than Shane is.
Well, yeah, outstanding. So everybody definitely go take a listen to that. Are there any other projects or anything you want to plug before we say sayonara here? Or
there's nothing that anyone can do anything about right this second, but we've got lots of things in the hopper, and the most things coming down the pike next week. Sunday, October 30th, noon Pacific time. If you go to the How Not to Make a Movie podcast YouTube channel and subscribe, you can be part of next Sunday's first ever the How Not to Have a Hollywood Halloween Q&A with Gil Adler and Alan Katz, hosts of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. Oh my God, what a title.
It's certainly a mouthful. All right. Well, Alan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. So I suppose this is how we end it.
The pleasure was absolutely mine.
Absolutely.
I look forward to doing it again with you guys sometime.
Yeah. We'll definitely have you back for sure. All right.
Oh, cool. I'll see you then.
Bye-bye.